So when sending a sub two offer, what are the steps? How do I do it? So step one, you have to call the agent, right? I'll go over this very quickly. You have to call the agent. You have to make sure they're interested in a subject to type purchase. And what that means is subject to the existing loan, meaning you're buying into the property, you're taking over that existing debt, and that's simply it in broad terms. So I'll give you guys a quick example and I'll go over the offer and what the numbers should be. And this should give you guys a pretty good idea of what your offer should look like. So let's go through an example and then I want to give you guys an idea of what the numbers should look like. So we have this property here that's worth $250,000. These homeowners bought in 2023 and now they want to sell. So this is what you call a low equity situation. Let's say that you did a FHA loan. They bought the property using an FHA loan in 2023. Now, a year and a half, 2 years later, they are looking to sell the property for $250,000. The current mortgage balance is $235,000. And I actually went over this in another video on another example, but it's going to be a slightly different example here. And also we're going to go through the offer process and how that would work. So at $250,000, if these sellers sold at full price and they owe $235,000 after the 6% commissions, the buyer seller side, closing costs, and potential concessions, they're losing about $5,000. So when you're sending on offer and you know this, the first thing you need to do is either A, get a mortgage statement. So the mortgage statement is going to have the balance. It's going to have the PITI, the principal, interest, tax, and insurance. And there'll be like a detailed description so you can kind of get a better idea of the payment and also the interest rate. And why you need all of this is simply for the buyer on the other side. They want to see how much debt they're getting into, what the pity payment would be, and other information as well that you can get from a mortgage statement. So in this case, the seller would be losing $5,000. So what would I offer here? They're losing $5,000. How much should I give them? So in this case, what I typically do and what our company typically does is we would give the seller $1,000. And what does that mean? That is literally $6,000 more than they would make if they sold at full price at $250,000. So the next step I kind of want to go over is on the acquisition side, when you're doing wholesaling, meaning you're the one who's setting offers out, you have to A, have a dispo partner you can talk to before, or B, know exactly what your buyers are looking for. So again, I do a lot of this. So I have a very clear understanding of what they're looking for and the numbers that make sense to them. So you have to kind of be on both sides. You have to understand, hey, what's the seller want, but also what's your buyer partner looking for. So generally, I follow this. It's called the 10% rule. So that deal we were mentioning earlier, it's an example, but it's a $250,000 property. So 10% of that is $25,000, meaning the buyer partner typically is going to come in around $25,000. That's very, very normal for these types of deals. That means if I want to get like a $10,000 assignment fee here, I need to be all in at $15,000. If I want to make more, I have to be less than that, right? So in this offer right here, we are all in like at $8,000. This is just an example, right? So this is not that normal, but it does happen sometimes. So we were at $7,080 to the agent, and then we were at $1,000 to the seller. So it all really depends on the cash on cash return. So sometimes that 10% will drop, and it could make it tighter, but that's very general. And obviously this information is out there, but I feel like people aren't as open about it as they should. So hopefully you guys can get a really clear understanding on what I'm talking about here. So again, let's say we assign this for $20,000 to the buyer partner, and then we're all in at $8,040. That's $12,000 we would make, and obviously we would split it between, myself and my partners. But that's a very clear example on how this would look. So that being said, let's say they're losing $5,000 on the sale, like a $250,000 house I was mentioning earlier. Let's say someone came in here and offered $15,000 to the seller and then $7,040 to the agent, which is what it was. Let's just put an example out there. That's all in at 22,000, and there's too little wiggle room to make any money on there, because if you're 10% is 25 and you're at 22, that already makes it close, and there's title fees, there's closing costs, there's all these things that kind of make that assignment a little tighter. So you guys need to be aware of that, because I see this all the time, especially with cash wholesalers, which is kind of why I'm not doing the cash stuff. Many cash wholesalers, they'll overgive, and basically what happens is they go under contract there and nothing happens. They can't find a buyer. And what does that do? That literally harms the seller. And in this business, you want to help people. You don't want to harm people. I'm a licensed agent. I know this really, really well. Like, you don't want to harm people. You're looking to do your job and obviously make money, but you want to help people as much as you can. So it's just part of the business. But people make mistakes, and it's really hard because wholesaling has a really bad reputation, because people, and most people, will have a deal and they have it under contract for way too much and they can't find a buyer and something happens. And lawsuits can happen from that. A lot of bad things happen from that. So what you need to make sure is you're avoiding that at the beginning on the acquisition side when you're sending out an offer. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Hopefully that gives you a very clear understanding of what a good offer versus a bad offer looks like when you're doing subject to wholesale deals. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much.